What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Brown. This is Heresy Financial. If you're not aware, the word heresy means an opinion that is profoundly at odds with what is generally accepted. And today, it is generally accepted that you need the velocity of money to increase in order to have inflation. And that is simply because of the way that it is calculated, and all mainstream economists agree that this is the case. Except what's happening right now? We have massive, record-breaking inflation flying in the face of everybody who's taking a look at the velocity of money and saying, why is it not increasing? So today we're going to answer that question. Why is the velocity of money not increasing while inflation is going up? Why the calculation, the way you arrive at the velocity of money, does not hold water in reality? And as always, we'll look at some easy examples to illustrate the point. And yes, I know I've covered this in videos in the past, but I've been getting a lot of questions about it recently, so I figured it's a good time worth revisiting the topic. Ready? Let's dive in. First, what is money velocity? If you take a look at this, you can see that money velocity is simply a calculation. Money velocity equals GDP divided by money supply. Now, sometimes it's GNP, although today they use GDP. They used to use GNP a lot, like 100 years ago. It's basically always been, it's always replaced with GDP nowadays. For money supply, sometimes they use M1, sometimes they use M2. And so you look at this equation and you think, hey, well, it's just math. If you want prices to rise, you're going to need a corresponding rise in the velocity of money. Well, that's making many people question what is going on, because after 6 months of record-breaking inflation over and over and over again, we haven't seen the velocity of money budge. So what is going on? Well, we have to break this formula down even further, specifically taking a look at how GDP is calculated. So how is GDP calculated? Well, number one, it is based off of many false assumptions about how the economy works. Mainly, the biggest assumption that is incorrect is that it assumes the economy is an evenly rotating economy. That means calculating GDP the official way, if you increase the money supply, you increase GDP, when in reality, we know that if you print money, it does nothing to corresponding goods and services. All you do is shrink the units of measurement of those goods and services, of the real wealth in the system. So just because the GDP number goes up means nothing. It is completely able to be engineered by printing. Now, what about the other side of the equation, the money supply? Well, we also know that can't be calculated as well. There are different ways that people try and calculate the money supply, like M1 and M2, like I mentioned, but these are all just estimates because you cannot accurately quantify the total supply of money, because some money is calculated as part of the money supply, but it's really not in circulation and it never will be, so it shouldn't be calculated as a part of the total. And there's other forms of money that can be included yet are kept out of the calculation. And so this is where economists run into severe, this is a phrase I heard a couple days ago, severe physics envy, where for the last 100 years, they've been trying to come up with calculations and formulas, pretending like they're physicists, able to describe how the economy works, when in reality, it's not physics. It's not a hard science, and you can't command and control. You can't look from the top down, get a bunch of fancy calculations together, and tell the economy how to work and fine-tune it to your liking. It doesn't work. Now, the application of this formula suggests that if you want prices to rise, you need the velocity of money to increase. And as an example, just an explanation of what they're talking about here, they're basically saying, hey, if you double the money supply and everybody's bank accounts explode, but people don't actually go out and spend that money, you're not going to have any prices rise. You need more money to be changing hands throughout the economy for it to bid up prices. And on the surface, that sounds correct. That sounds plausible or reasonable until you think about it for about 5 minutes. Now, I have to pause here for a moment and make a note. Absolutely 0%, nothing that I know has spontaneously popped into my head. Absolutely nothing. Everything that I know, 100% of it, has been given to me by others. And that is true for 99.99999% of people out there. It takes a very unique individual to actually figure things out for yourself. Most of what we think is figuring things out for ourselves is actually we were taught something, we heard something, we learned something, filed it away, and years later, months later, whenever it was, our brain slowly put connections together, and bam, now things that we've been storing away that we had no use for now suddenly come together and make sense. And we think we figured something out, but really we've just put things together that were given to us by others. This is a great example of this. There was a fantastic example by George Gammon about velocity of money and why it does not need to increase to have prices go up. For simplicity's sake, let's say you and I are the only actors in the economy. You own a pizza shop. I like pizza. I come to your restaurant for dinner and I order 2 pizzas. How much do your pizzas cost this year? They cost $10. I give you $10 per pizza. I buy 2 of them. How much total is that? $20. So this year, the total money that has exchanged hands, that has traded hands, is $20. That is the money velocity, the $20 changed hands for the 2 pizzas that I bought from you this year. Now we fast forward 1 year. Prices have gone up. Maybe it's because of supply chains. Maybe it's because of greedy capitalists. Who knows? But the prices have gone up. And this year, instead of your pizzas costing $10, they cost $20. 100% inflation. I come to your restaurant for dinner and I can only afford to buy 1 pizza. How much money trades hands this year? $20. That's the exact same amount of money that changed hands last year. 2 pizzas for $10 each or 1 pizza for $20 each. Same money velocity, but inflation was 100%. So we can see very clearly now with critical thought, you do not need the velocity of money to increase for prices to also increase. You can have that happen independently. And we are seeing this in real time. All you have to do is look at the official inflation numbers, which are breaking records every month, and then also look at the money velocity chart and see, well, clearly somebody did their math wrong because money velocity is down in the dumps. It's staying at the bottom, and we're breaking price inflation records every single month. So something doesn't add up here. And for the final kicker here, let's say the last 6 months hadn't happened and proved this all wrong. And let's say you were still living a year ago and looking at this and saying, hey, we're not going to have inflation until money velocity starts to pick up. Well, guess what? Money velocity is not at a record low. We have seen money velocity this low before. And guess what happened last time money velocity got this low? We entered into a period of extreme inflation that sustained itself for a very long time. So even if you say, hey, this inflation that we are having right now is temporary and it's going to go back down, and that's due to money velocity not reacting and not going up, well, you have to then look at what happened last time money velocity got this low, which was a result of these long-term cycles. We are going to be looking at a sustained period of inflation as money velocity picks back up, because the reality is at some point, as savings start to lose their value faster and faster, as wages start to lose their purchasing power faster and faster, and as the system gets flooded with more and more new money, at some point psychology does take over and people start to dump the currency, and then you get a spike in money velocity, which is not pretty when it happens. So the reality is you do not need money velocity to spike in order to have inflation. That's evidenced by the fact that the formula doesn't work and the last 6 months of record-breaking inflation with low velocity. But even if you do need velocity to go up, what happens when velocity gets this low is it eventually does start to skyrocket, and then you have persistent inflation as well. As always, really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.